Hi guys, so let's talk about creating landscapes. Our objectives are understand ways to create atmospheric perspective and the illusion of space. And second, develop skill in creating different values and line qualities in India ink to create believable space, forms, and distance in a landscape. So we have 3 words worth knowing. Our first is atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective is creating the illusion of depth into space by using color and/or value to simulate changes created by the atmosphere on the colors of things seen at a distance. And if you're looking out my classroom window, you can see this. If you're in any type of really beautiful landscape like mountains or the ocean, where you can see really, really far back, you're going to be able to see this. So what you're going to see is that the foreground has a higher contrast and is more intense, and it fades and lightens into value as you move into the background. So things at the front are darker, they're more intense. As they get a little further, they fade out a little bit. As they get a little further, they fade out even more. So this is an easy way to create distance in your artwork. Here is a visual example. So you can see in the foreground, those mountains are really, really dark, really intense. In the middle, they kind of back off a little bit. And then as you get into the background, they start to fade out. Our second word worth knowing is overlap. So overlap is simply the placement of one object in front of another in order to create the illusion of depth. So it's pretty easy to use overlap. So whatever is in front looks like it's closer, and then as you put things behind it, it gives the appearance of it being further back. So overlap is a really easy way to create depth. Our last is relative size. So the size of one object or part of a landscape in relation to another. So for example, a tree in the foreground would be painted much larger than a tree in the background. So this is our foreground tree. As we go off into the distance, not only are we going to use atmospheric perspective and change the value, we are also going to change the size. So as you go further and further and further back, it's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and less detailed. So this is also known as scale and proportion, and it is crucial to understand this to create space and distance in your artwork. So another example. So our foreground is more intense. Our middle ground is lighter. It's starting to fade out. And then our background gets even lighter and things get less detailed. So for your practice work before we work on a full landscape, I would like you to practice creating a variety of trees on Bristol paper. So you can practice creating bigger and smaller trees to create that distance. You can practice using a range of values to create distance. And then second, once you get a hang of your trees that you want to use, I would like you to create at least 3 mini landscapes that show this atmospheric perspective, space, and distance before we go to the big paper. So here's an example of some tree practice. So you can see that really big blobby dark tree. I'm not very happy with that, but that's why we practice. I went too dark too fast. Here is an example of some mini landscapes that I've done. It is shiny because I laminated it, but you can see that I used that value to create distance, and then you can also see how I use size to create distance. Another example of some trees, and then a few more landscapes. And you could be as creative as you want. If you want to add any type of buildings, animals, things in the sky, that is up to you. So when you are done, just make sure you check off with me before you move on to the next thing. Good job.